Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the Central Division Preview. That's not what it's called. Actually, I don't even know what it's called. Is it the Florida Division? The Southern Division?
No, I think it is the Central. I think they left it Central. They changed the name of everything else, and they kept this one Central.
Why
did the West have to change? Why couldn't that just stay Pacific? I don't understand.
Why did the Canadian Division need to change to North? It makes no sense, honestly. Actually, I kind of like the North Division, but it doesn't make sense because there are Northern American teams, too. So it doesn't really make sense. And the South doesn't make sense either.
Buffalo might be further north than one of the Canadian teams, actually.
I think so. I think you might be right. Probably.
I could be wrong. I don't know.
You could be very wrong. I think you are wrong, actually.
They're close at least.
They're close.
Obviously.
I mean, it's close to Montreal. Technically, Buffalo should have been in the North Division because, for all intents and purposes, I consider Buffalo part of Canada sometimes. That's actually a hot take. I'm probably going to get flamed. But
I bet you more Canadians have been to Buffalo than Americans.
That is actually probably true. That is actually probably true. Okay, so let's start off with the Central Division. A few teams to talk about. This division, there's one thing that stands out to me about this division. And Brandon and I talked about this offline a little bit because I mentioned it to him. The goalies suck. There's a lot of not good ones. This has to be the worst division for goaltending. There are so many bad goaltenders, and I like maybe...
Well, wait a minute.
2 of them?
You say the worst... So this is an interesting thing that I noticed when writing up my script as well, is I agree that the goalies are not good, but I think the goaltending, like... All the goalies get a boost a little bit in this league because there's so bad scoring teams on here.
I mean...
There's 8 teams right here, right? 5 of them were in the bottom half of scoring last season. And 2 of them were in the bottom 3.
Who's
so
just curious,
there is that.
Who would you say is your favorite for this division? I don't think there's like a clear favorite. Oh, I mean, okay, ignore. I forgot Tampa. I
Tampa.
Completely forgot Tampa's in this division. Obviously the favorite. Who's the next best? Because honestly, Carolina. I don't know if I have an answer.
I like Carolina and then I like Dallas, probably.
Yeah, I guess Carolina. I mean, I like Florida too.
I think Columbus. I
think Florida can score.
As with every other season, I have no idea what Columbus is.
Me neither.
When I look at them on paper, I'm like, I don't think they're very good.
Yeah.
And yet, I've thought that for years.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, over there.
I think Florida also has a chance in this division. They have a good offense. I mean, if they can put it together, right? Like, and they got Patrick Hornquist, which I actually think. I think the addition of Patrick Hornquist, we'll talk about this, is really underrated because of what he can do on that power play.
I think that was like the perfect addition for their team.
Perfect. I think it's exactly what they needed. When you looked at what that team had before, it's perfect for them, I think. So anyways, let's actually talk about the teams in this division. And let's start off first with the Carolina Hurricanes, who have 2 guys that, in my opinion, are both... It's strange. They're both going really high, and I think they're both... I think they're both a little bit higher than they should.
Yeah,
especially one more than the other.
Actually, I think the entire top line is going too high.
Yes,
too early.
I'd agree with that. I think actually, me and you are going to disagree on this. So I think Aho is going too high, especially given that he's a center. Given we're considering here standard,
and given that he shot 20% last season.
Yes,
and given that he didn't even have a point per game last season after shooting 20%.
Which is kind of nuts. And the other thing was, didn't they do some weird power play thing at some time too? Like in Carolina,
he was off top power play for a little bit.
Yeah, so that also turns me off of him a little bit. I mean, he only had 18 power play points. His power play points actually went down from the year before when it comes to Aho. So I don't know if I'm definitely not taking Aho at 12. I mean, that happened to me in my mock draft, and I recovered okay. But I would definitely be pretty pissed if I auto drafted Sebastian Aho around 12. I think it's terrible, especially when you consider where Tavares is going and where guys like that are going, like Patrice Bergeron. I'd take those guys over. Of course, Aho has the shooting, which is great, but aside from that,
he's also got he has a nice division. Like you mentioned, the goaltenders aren't good.
Yeah.
Carolina is obviously not one of the bottom shooting or scoring teams, so they're going to be able to eat a little bit here. But I don't think that makes him like a borderline first rounder.
Yeah. And I don't think he's going to be able to eat like we think he will either. I think.
Yeah.
So
we're still talking about somebody that hasn't broken.
Yes.
Point. Well, he has broken
point
per game, but barely. And I mean, going over guys like Brad Marchand and things like that is just
silly.
Or Stamkos even. Stamkos, same division. What are we talking about?
I know. It's insane. And so to me, I think Aho is going a little bit over. Now, this is the one that I think we'll disagree on. I think Svech is actually right at about value. Yeah.
He was on my busts.
I know he
But
was.
I basically have I think of Aho and Svechnikov essentially the same. And actually, if I were to pick up either one of them, they'd be around the same personal ADP, which
Ooh.
haven't even honestly thought of what
Interesting.
that would be because I'm never going to get either one.
I disagree.
So-
I like Svech a little bit kind of at where he's at, just because he offers shots. He offers a pretty good hit pace that went up last
His
season.
shots aren't that great.
Yes, they
They're
are.
not as good as I thought they were.
220 pace. That's pretty good. 220
That's
pace
less
last
than
season.
3.
Huh?
Again, Stamkos. Why
But
are we not
he
just
did
taking
that.
Stamkos here?
But he did that with only 17 minutes. Yeah, I agree. I'd take Stamkos there.
Why do we think he's
Totally
going
agree.
up? Are we just guessing?
Yeah. Is that not what we
Everybody's
do on
guessing
the,
on
Is
this
that not
guy.
what we do on this show? Do we not just guess?
Yeah, but
Is that not
I'm not
the
going to assume
point
he's going
of
to get
this
an
whole
increase
show?
in ice time. He may.
No.
He might. I don't know.
I will say this. Now, I don't have them similar in ADP, personal ADP. I don't hate Svech where he's at. Aho, I think I'd put him down more into like the 30s or 40s. Maybe a hot take. But I take Aho more in like considering standard caps. In
Yeah,
a
I do
points
think
league,
he's. I think, but I would drop both of them quite a bit. Like I that's why Svech was in my
I
busts.
like
Is
Svech.
like
He went up in minutes
dude,
last
I
year.
love him as a player. There's you know that I love him.
I know,
I traded
but-
or I drafted him last year. I've tried to trade for him in Dynasty, which you will not accept, which is understandable. Of
course, I'm
but I don't want to take that risk, that second round risk in a redraft league when his floor is still like totally unknown and definitely not high.
Sure. I mean,
So
look, I'd rather have.
I mean, we don't. He could play power play 2, line 2 the whole season. Like we just
I
don't
don't
know
know
what's
about
going
that.
on with
He played
Carolina.
fi-
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know
but
about that.
Lots of things haven't made sense over there.
Yeah, but he played 60% of the power play last year. His minutes went up last year. There
But
is
why
one
did
thing.
Aho? Like
I will say this. There's one thing that is alarming about Svech from last year, and it's his on-ice shooting percentage at 11%. That's high. That is quite high. And considering that the year prior to that it was 8%. Now Aho also had an 11% shooting, so it was just kind of a team thing. So if that comes down, that definitely hurts Svech a little bit. That
want him
being
to
said,
shoot
like
more.
I do want him to shoot more too. But again, the shooting comes with a time on ice increase. If the time on ice increases, so for example, his ice time increased 15% last year, his shot pace increased 15%. Like, if he gets more ice time, he'll shoot more. So I think, yes, the gamble here is that he shoots more, that he gets more ice time. And if he does, then I think you'd expect both his goals to go up and you'd expect his shots to go up. So the gamble here
but
is ice time.
I'm just not
Do you
gambling
want
in the
to?
second.
Yeah, that's fair.
18.2, basically in the middle of the second round. I'm taking Stamkos. I'm taking Marchand. I'm taking all these other guys that are falling there that are worth more than Svech to me.
Here's a few guys that are right below him. Mika. I'd take Mika. John Carlson.
I mean, Marner's right next to him
I'd
too.
take Carlson, yeah.
I would probably
Stammer's
take. In fact,
below
I would
him.
definitely take Marner.
Marchand is below him. Gensel is below him.
I would take Huberdeau over him. I would take Marchand. I would take Gensel. I would take Stamkos. I'd take all those guys over him.
I don't know if I'd take
I would take
Huberdeau.
Line over him. Line is what we want him to be this season.
I do like Line. I will say, like we've talked about, I think Line is a big sleeper in the sense that like people are a little afraid of him and he's going like 30s, but I think he could easily be a top 20 player this season.
He could be, but
With-
once again,
especially with the Canadian
he's got to be able to
division.
crack point per game too, which he hasn't done.
That's true. So anyways, Svechnikov I think is one of the most contentious picks of this year, and this is a
Nobody
guess.
seems to be
this is a
contentious
guessing
about him
podcast.
except for me. I'm the one saying he's not good, and everybody else thinks he's like the best person that's ever lived.
That's not true. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think, like
I think
I said,
it's true. Everybody hates me, and my take's gonna be right, and everybody's gonna hate me for having the right
everyone
take.
loves you. Everyone likes you. I'm the one that people don't like because I ruined their drafts with a Bob take last year. By the way, you get another
did.
Bob take this episode, so stay tuned. So, anyways, okay, that's enough on those two guys. So let's move on to the next person on the top line here, which is Teravainen.
Yep, Turbo.
Turbo.
It's kind of a similar story. You know, we're talking 42.3. We're talking about a guy that's like his upside is point per game, which is pretty attainable to be honest, but he just gives you nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like Mark Stone. Like I think Turbo and Mark Stone, as far as fantasy concerned, are almost the same player. And Mark Stone, for what it's worth, is going 10 points higher, 10 picks higher. But
Yeah.
I didn't like him there. I don't like Turbo here necessarily, although I don't think he's quite as overblown as Mark Stone is. But I still like. I would drop him a handful of positions,
yeah.
not a ton, like a round.
Oh no, I'd bump him down. He's going like 40ish right now. I'd bump him down to like 60 or 70.
I wouldn't put him
personally.
that far. I
I'd
mean,
put him
I
that
do
far.
think he's got a pretty good chance to go point per game or better this season. But I think the same with Mark Stone.
Yeah,
I just don't like guys that don't give me anything else.
I don't like his 11, a pretty high on ice shooting percentage. His shooting percentage was really low last year. I will give him that. He played 19 minutes last season. I think that's about as high as he's going to get. Played 60% of the power play. I don't know. I think he's more like a 60 ranked guy for me in standard. I like him in points leagues. Again, I think the thing with a lot of these guys on
He's
Carolina,
playing like Svech without the shots right now.
yeah, exactly,
Or without the hits, rather.
Yeah.
Not without the shots. He's
Pretty
got
much
the same shots.
Yeah, same power play percentage, all that good stuff. They're pretty similar. Now the big difference, of course, being that Svech does have that ceiling that I don't think Turbo has. I think Svech has a ridiculous ceiling that if he gets 19 minutes like Teuvo does, he sees this crazy ceiling that Turbo just can't even touch. That's what you're gambling on right there, right?
Yeah.
As far as Turbo, that's
I'm not gambling at 2, though.
Yeah.
I'm not gambling at the 2 spot.
That is fair. And I agree with you. I don't think I would do it either. I don't hate where he's going. I understand that ceiling. I wouldn't take that risk. And then after...
crazy.
Yeah. After Turbo, let's jump into... There's not really anything much to talk about on the forward side. Vincent Trocheck, not relevant anymore.
I can quickly touch... I have a couple notes on the other forwards that people might be thinking about. In my opinion, Trocheck... The most interesting thing that can happen with Trocheck is he gets power play 1, which is possible. We don't really know who's going to fill out that 4th forward spot. If he gets it, we could see him be in a similar situation that he was in Florida, which, produced his best season and had people draft him in 3rd round and stuff. I don't expect that, so he's really a guy to watch rather than draft, but whatever. I think kind of similar things, but to a significantly lesser upside extent, go to Niederreiter and Nakash. But I'm not drafting any of those guys, but I would have my eye on Trocheck just because he brings the peripherals with him if he does get in a position to use them, essentially.
Yeah. I wouldn't count on it, though. Like you said,
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't even draft him, I don't think. I think I'd place him on a watch.
No, I'm not either. I'm watching him. If he gets power play 1, I probably will pick him up.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's move on to the defense. Last year, Dougie Hamilton was a sleeper to us, and he broke out. I think that was probably the best sleeper hit we've had in a long time.
Shea,
maybe.
Although Shea waited until I called him as droppable.
That is true. And then he finally blew up. That's how it usually works out for you. Dougie to me is a monster. There are a few things that there's not a lot to not like. One thing I don't like is that we didn't get a full season out of him last year. So we didn't get to see how it all panned out. He was on a 70-point pace, 47 games into the season. But that's only halfway. A lot can change.
I also don't love him shooting 8% as a defenseman.
He did shoot 7% the year before, to be fair.
7's fine. But you're talking a few goals gone at that point.
But here's the thing, too. I mean, it's only a few. So he scored 14 goals. His expected goals were 10. So it was only a difference of 4, which isn't that big of a deal there, right? And on top of that, I think the 8% is also one of those things like you're saying, right? But like you're saying, at 8%, like also with 47 games played only, that probably would have come down over the course of the season, would be my guess, unless his name is Tony DeAngelo secretly, and somehow it just never comes down. But I think it would have come down. So this season, to me, Dougie Hamilton is still a very, very good asset. The question to me is, what does he do with a full season under his belt? And of course, the season is right around, that 47 game mark. It's not that much more. And so he could put on a season like this.
56.
56. So it's not that much more, right, than last season. So I think when I look at Dougie, I would expect more like 60 points in a regular season pace, which is like...
Yeah.
What is that?
40 or something.
40 something. I don't know. Something like that.
A little over 40, 43
still really good.
or something like that. Yeah.
Still really good for defenseman. And the big thing with Dougie is that he shoots a lot, which is amazing. He was on a 297 shot pace last season. Insane. And he also gets you pretty good blocks at 110. He hit a 110 pace last season. So not bad on the blocks department. So if you're in a blocks league, that jumps him a few spots just because of that. His hits pace isn't great. It dropped a ton last season for some reason. I think it's because he took a more offensive role. And because of that, his hits drop down. So I think that's where he's at. I would love to see more power play points out of him. He got 13.
He's still an okay
year.
hit and PIM source, honestly.
Yeah,
they're
not terrible.
They're not bad. They exist.
So. They're there. So it's not like what I do like about Dougie is that in a blocks league, you're not wasting you're not like just ruining your block potential or whatever by taking a Dougie like you would with Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes or Torrey Krug or these other point defensemen, right? He is more, I think, in the Yossi camp and even the John Carlson camp, where you are getting a lot of other peripherals alongside what they're doing, you know?
I like Dougie a lot. I think he's probably my fourth favorite defenseman.
Yeah.
I'd probably go Hedman, Carlson, Yossi, Hamilton, I think.
I think I'd actually... I think this might be a hot take. I think I like Yossi over Hedman.
Maybe, yeah. I do think... I mean, we'll get to Hedman, but...
Yes. They're all...
I don't think that's a crazy take. I do think that there's a lot of chatter about taking Hamilton over Yossi, which I understand, but I wouldn't.
My order is actually, personally, John Carlson, Roman Yossi, Dougie, and then Victor Hedman.
Wow.
That's my personal rank. Where I think that Hedman and Hamilton are pretty much identical in terms of like value that they'll drive. But I would maybe put Dougie above him just because Dougie shoots so much more. Maybe.
Yeah.
But the upside, I think, is a lot less than Hedman because of his power play point potential, right? But yeah.
The floor's higher too with Hedman.
Yeah. To me, though, that's my order. My order is Carlson, Yossi, and then kind of Hedman, Dougie, kind of for a tie. And then it's duke it out for that fifth spot. Maybe Neil Pionk. We'll see.
All right, let's wrap up this team.
Let's wrap this up. Okay, goaltenders, Peter Mrazek, James
Wait,
Reimer.
wait.
Oh, Jacob Slavin.
Jacob Slavin is...
Block guy. That's it.
He's all right in blocks and plus minus.
That's it.
That's basically it. I wouldn't expect him to have a big points season again. Could happen, but... I mean the best you'll expect from is half a point per game.
Yeah, he didn't even get a big point season last season. But he is, I will say, in a deeper league, he's a really good option, I think. He played around 23 and a half minutes last season, which was really good for him. So he's just a minute cruncher, which helps with those peripherals. So yeah, for blocks,
yeah,
good.
I do think he gets overrated a bit, which is my concern with him. But I mean, he's getting drafted in like the 13th round right now, which is all right, but
yeah. And then
you could probably do better.
Peter Mrazek, James Reimer, I'm not touching either. I don't like him.
No,
I don't like
Mrazek is going too high at 94. It's like
when you look at the other goaltenders,
I would like him if it fell more because I think he's gonna get a lot of wins.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Wow, we have a lot of energy today. Spent a lot of energy there on Carolina. I mean, to be fair, I think it's the team that kind of has the most to talk about. Honestly,
yeah. People might think that the answer to that question is Tampa, but it really isn't.
No, I agree.
Tampa has like proven assets, and then like there's a lot of like.
Yeah, I think Carolina is the most interesting team in the Central.
From a fantasy perspective.
Like from a fantasy perspective, it is. I think the most interesting team. The other ones are all. I mean, Nashville's.
You know what?
So, anyways,
this next team, the Blackhawks, I actually think there's a lot of potential.
Yes.
For breakouts here.
A lot of waiver breakout potential too. Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about Chicago.
So Patrick Kane, I don't think we need to talk about him too much, except for the fact that everybody seems to think he's not worth like a keeper spot for some reason, and that like, I don't know, he's like 32 or 33. Like, relax, he's still good. Also, he still shoots a ton. He hasn't needed Taze. It'll be okay. Yeah, it's fine. Even if Taze doesn't play this season or whatever,
his minutes will probably come up. To be honest,
yeah,
I think he'll probably see more minutes. I mean, he was on a 98.
He played with Dylan Strome last season. I mean, he was already off of Taze's line sometimes.
98 point pace last season, 322 shot pace. Like, I don't really see what people are seeing to not keep him as a keeper. When you consider that Panarin is going, significantly higher than him. He's a proven guy. I get that Chicago looks worse, but he's done this before on his own. I mean, yeah, he is possible of a bad season entirely, but like. I think he's getting faded a little bit too far for the quality of the team. I don't think that's a big issue.
Yeah. I mean, his ADP seems about right, but I feel like I just hear a lot of talk about
not keeping
fading him.
Yeah, I mean, I even posted my keepers, and I had Patrick Kane in there as an option. A lot of people didn't want to keep Patty Kane. I mean, I'm not going to keep him only because I'm going to keep my two goaltenders because they're more valuable in this league. Everyone keeps goaltenders. It's ridiculous. People hoard the goalies, and so it's impossible to get goalies. So I have to keep Connor Hellebuyck and Vasilevsky. But if I weren't keeping if it weren't that type of league where my goalie can be traded for more value than Patrick Kane, I'd keep Patrick Kane. But I just can't justify it because of Hellebuyck. But that's the only reason. Otherwise, he's a top two goalie, right? So it's different. But that's the only situation I think where I'd say, I don't know. But otherwise, Patty Kane is probably a keeper. Then moving on, there's Jonathan Taze. I wouldn't even draft him. We had him on the sleeper episode. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't sound good.
Right.
I'm not touching that personally.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of supporting cast members here. So there's Alex DeBrincat, there's Dominic Kubalik, there's Dylan Strome, there's potentially Kirby Dach.
No, Kirby Dach is done forever. Like he destroyed his arm. So
He did. I forgot
he's
about
out
that.
for 4 to 5 months.
Well,
Yeah.
deleting Kirby Dach from my sheet because I totally forgot he destroyed his arm. And I saw the picture. You know what it was? I saw the picture. I erased that thought from my memory forever. And now it's just popped back up. Thank you for pulling that memory up again. Very visual. I'm glad I have photographic memory. So starting with Alex DeBrincat, good season last year. The thing to me...
Was it?
It was a decent season. I mean, it wasn't great. I think the thing was people expected so much more. Remember, we called him a bust.
Yeah.
Because everyone was expecting this 76-point season, but he had shot at 18. He's shot at 19% the season before. His shot pace actually went up. What happened was his shooting percentage it just crashed, as did his on-ice shooting percentage. His on-ice shooting percentage from the year before was 12.5%. That's nuts. So what happened this last season? He just fell back to earth and was normal. He was as
He
expected.
overcorrected, I'd say.
He overcorrected on the shooting percentage, especially. Yeah, that 8.7% was way too low on the shooting percentage. His on-ice shooting percentage fell to 9.2. That I think was fine. I think that was okay.
Yep.
What was a much stronger overcorrection was that shooting percentage, and mostly at even strength. I mean, his power play shooting percentage was the same at around 20%. So to me, DeBrincat, when I say he had a good season, it's because he had the season I expected him to have last year, not the one most people expected him to have, because most people were drafting him based on his 2018 stats. But we told you on the show, I remember last year, we were like, he's going to fall back down to earth. There are so many things here that point to he needs to kind of relax. And I think that's what happened. And he did place around 17 and a half minutes last season. I think that goes up now this season with Tays gone. So I think he could take a little bit of a step up, but I think he's a good shots guy, but otherwise it's tough to recommend him.
I like Dominic Kubalik more than I like Alex DeBrincat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like DeBrincat at 102.7.
I mean, it varies a bit because we don't really know who's going to get that top left wing. If Kubalik gets it, I definitely like him more. If he doesn't get it, it's close. But, I mean, Kubalik's got a good shot, and I mean, I get he's young, but this isn't somebody I'm recommending to take in like the 8th round, right? He's 127.5 is his ADP. Like, you can get him pretty late. The upside's certainly there, as we saw. Yeah, I think I would have him over to DeBrincat personally.
I don't know if Daily Faceoff. So Daily Faceoff's been updating their lines. I don't know if
I think they're just guessing, honestly.
Some of them aren't. Some of them are reflective of practice now at this point. Chicago was updated just yesterday, or December 31st. I don't know if they have DeBrincat on the top line, and then Kubalik on the second right wing.
Yep.
And then they have Kubalik and DeBrincat on the top power play unit with Duncan Keith.
Yep.
And then they have Boquist on the second line. So the
Yep.
second power play unit. But yeah, I agree. I think whoever gets that top left wing is more valuable. I think it'll be DeBrincat because he has history with Patty Kane.
Well, I'm saying even if DeBrincat gets top left wing, I like him about the same. If Kubalik gets it, I like Kubalik more.
Interesting.
I just don't like DeBrincat that much.
I know you don't.
I'm not a big DeBrincat fan.
I like DeBrincat for his shots. And if his minutes go up, I could see him have...
But Kubalik will get about the same shots, I think, this season. Because he's going to get more minutes, too, and he's going to be the one that didn't have minutes to begin with. You know, he looked at a 14-minute season.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't really have much to go with. So I think
Although
he's got minute upside.
You're also saying that you like a guy who shot at 19% last season.
Yeah, I mean, we got no idea who he is, really, from a shooting perspective, but it's a good first season.
Yeah, he's definitely not shooting 19%, I'll tell you that much. On the fantasy
Did it
hockey
again in the postseason.
The fantasy hockey guessing
who knows?
podcast. And then Dylan Strome. I'm not a huge fan of Dylan Strome, honestly.
I think he's an all right late round grab at this point.
He's all right,
'Cause, I mean,
but-
he's still going to go really late, and he's going to get a big ice time increase, so the points can be there, but he's never going to give you a ton of peripherals.
He's not going to
So
give you
have
any
to know
peripheral
that going in.
Also, where are you going to fit in a center that late? That's my issue. Is like you look at all the centers available before him, and like where are you fitting in Dylan Strome to your plan?
If you have a generic forwards league or something,
He's a center right wing for what it's worth, and generic forward, I guess. But there's still a lot of centers
Have
before
right wing
him
nights,
that I like way more. I think just the lack of peripherals is what kills him. Even in a points league, I don't really like him that much, to be honest. I just don't see the ceiling that much. I just don't really see it. And then the goaltenders. Defenders. Duh. Duncan Keith and Adam Boquist. I like Duncan Keith a lot, actually. We featured him on the
Yeah.
Sleepers episode. I think we kind of covered him there pretty well. I think he's a good value for where he's going at. When he gets top power play, he does a lot better. He got 11 power play points last year with only 42% of the team's power play. Most of those came when he was on the top power play. I like him. He's fine. He's not like he's really good in the block
he's
side,
all right.
especially.
I mean, you'll get him in like one of the last rounds.
Yeah.
So Boquist, I would just watch personally.
Yeah, just watch.
I don't really expect much unless he gets top power play, and even then he needs to prove it. So
Yeah. To be fair, they do have
I don't even want to talk about the goalies, but
yeah, Adam Boquist, to be fair, if I could see him taking that top power play pretty quickly.
he could.
I could see him getting it. So just someone to place on your watch list. And we'll do an episode that's all about like watch lists. So who do you place on your watch list after the previews, I guess. And we're going to do some drafts this weekend in listener leagues. By the way, all the people in Discord, all our patrons and YouTube members listening to us live, there's a whole ton of you. So thanks for listening live, which is a cool little perk you get. If you become a YouTube member or Patreon member, you can listen to us live. And we talk about random stuff before and after the episodes. It's fun. Yeah, we're skipping the goaltenders. They're useless. Also, don't forget Nikita Zadorov is now on the Chicago Blackhawks. Pretty good peripheral person. And on top of that, if you're playing or usually when you're on a crappy team like Zadorov is, usually you get even more peripherals just because you have the opportunity to just go out there and hit people. And I think that's what he'll do. He's just going to go out there and get bangos. Well, he doesn't block that great, but he's a big hitter. So something to pay attention to.
Yep, and Pims.
We're skipping the goaltenders. They're trash. Like they are awful.
Yeah.
Avoid at all
Like
costs.
Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia or something like that.
I don't
It's not
think
good.
anyone in the league has a worse pairing than Chicago.
Probably not.
I don't think anyone. I don't even know. Honestly, I was thinking about this today. I think they might have an AHL level pairing.
Yeah, they do.
I
for
think
sure.
it is an AHL level pairing of Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia. It is below replacement level.
It's not good.
That's what I think. I think they're absolutely awful, and they're going to get just roasted. That's what I think, but who knows? Malcolm Subban has surprised me before on the Vegas Golden Knights. Okay, let's move on to the Dallas Stars. So we've got Jamie Benn.
Wait, we're skipping Columbus Blue Jackets.
I keep skipping them. Damn it. I scrolled down too far. Okay, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Don't worry. I didn't forget you guys. Remember, my name's PLD as a sleeper. Who we'll start with. PLD. Just re-signed in Columbus. Good for him. I have him as a little bit of a sleeper. I think I've kind of warmed up to the idea now that he's going a little bit more at value. But I do think that in a peripherals league, he offers a little bit more value than you'd think. Like if he's going 97.3. I think he's more of like a 70 to 80 guy. Somewhere in there. That's so not by a lot. There is some value to be had there as a center, and especially if you want to wait on centers till later. And I think that there's a big opportunity for him to have a huge season if Oliver Bjorkstrand also has a huge season. So
Yeah. Bjorkstrand is
Kinda
definitely
like
like
that.
the big sleeper here,
he's the big sleeper for
if
sure.
anybody is.
Yeah.
But he's definitely the definition of the traditional sleeper in that there's a high ceiling and a low floor for him.
Yes.
So
I like him a lot.
I basically think everybody on this team has an awful floor. So
Yes, they all have just a terrible floor. I mean, when you look at really the only other guys to talk about, I mean, let's just talk about Bjorkstrand real quick here. 270 shot pace with 18 minutes of ice time. Only played 49 games last season. Obviously got injured at one point. Played 53% of the team's power play. I think he's going to be a monster. I want to see him shoot more on the power play. I hope he gets more minutes and gets that top line. It's someone to watch for sure. I love him as a sleeper. I'm really curious to see where he goes in our listener leagues. I think people are going to snipe us for sure and take him a little earlier than even I'd want him, potentially, but we'll see. And then the other forwards...
People like Nick Robertson and Quentin Byfield are going above him. It seems
strange.
seems weird to me.
It seems like
Not
just,
that I don't like those
well,
players, I just don't quite understand.
It's quite expected, honestly. One is Toronto hype. The other one is Canada hype from World Juniors and stuff. It kind of makes sense.
Kaka's going over him.
And, yeah,
Kapanen's going over him.
just name guys that
Stutzla's
go over
going
him,
over
right?
him.
By the
I think
time
I
you
said
get-
that right. I think it's Stutzla, right? I don't know.
I thought it was Stutzle. No,
Stutzla.
Stutzel.
Stutzla.
I thought it was Stutzel.
It's definitely not Stutzel.
Is it not Stutzel? Whatever.
Stutzla,
We definitely pronounced it
think.
wrong on the episode. That's for sure.
Yes,
We did. We looked it up. We did. You said Stutzel, which I did think it was Stutzel. I'm a liar. I did think it was Stutzel. And then the other forwards: Nick Foligno, Max Domi, Cam Atkinson. Nick Filoni. Nick Foligno is the only one
Nick
that's
Filoni.
Nick Filoni. Nick Foligno is the only one that I even consider thinking about. And that's if you're like in a deep, deep league, then I'd consider Nick Foligno. That's the only one. Like if you're in a deep league, I guess.
I actually kind of
Otherwise,
like Foligno. He fills cats very well for a guy that's going as late as he is.
eh.
He's not going to get you a bunch of points, but he'll get you PIMs, blocks, and hits all in one package. In
He
a
won't
PIMs
get you.
league.
I mean, he'll get you
And a
some
blocks
blocks.
league.
I guess for forward, it's fine.
He gets you very good blocks for a
He
forward.
does get you. His hits pace took a whole new level this last year. He went up 32% in hits.
Yep.
That was huge. It's a big increase.
I
for
actually
him.
think I think that Domi might be a bit of a sleeper. Actually, I know
What?
you don't like him that much, but
No.
if he is able to click on top power play, if they can get something going on the power play, I mean that's good for everybody. But it could mean Domi being a last round pick could be worth it as a last round pick or whatever.
I don't know, because if anyone gets going on the power play, hopefully it's Bjorkstrand who's the shooter, and I don't really know if Domi factors into that.
I'm doing this whole thing under the assumption that top power play would be Domi, PLD, Atkinson, and Bjorkstrand.
I thought you didn't like guessing, sir. What happened?
I don't. I mean, we're talking about the last round, not the second.
That is fair. That is very fair. Moving on to defensemen, Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, the only two really worth talking about. I think they're both overdrafted.
Yeah, they're both going
Personally.
too early.
They're both going too early. They both are the pairing that, honestly, I think has the most hype around them, and that isn't warranted. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense from a fantasy perspective. I love them as players. As real-life players, they're great. There is one thing I like about Werenski that he did take a big, big step up in this last year. And I will give him credit for this.
Shots. Yeah,
his
yeah.
shots. And if that continues, maybe he's more interesting this year. He's still not worth his ADP, but
Nope.
he could be more interesting. The thing that kills him, and honestly kills every single Columbus Blue Jacket, is their power play. It sucks.
Yep.
It is terrible. He got 13 power play points in 63 games. That's terrible.
Seth Jones is actually he's decent in blocks leagues. He gets a lot of blocks.
I don't.
So he's okay, but again, I want if I'm taking him as a second or God forbid a first defenseman,
Jeez.
I'm going to want him to be able to get power play points, and I just don't trust either one of them.
Things
to do
have
that.
gone terribly wrong if you're taking Seth Jones. For you specifically, if you're taking Seth Jones as your top defenseman, something.
If
has
I'm
gone
doing that, it means I
horribly
have
wrong.
completely punted on defense.
Yeah.
And if I somehow got Seth Jones, it means everybody else did too.
Yeah, it means you are awful. Okay, the goaltenders Elvis Merzlikins and Jonas Korpisalo. I honestly don't really love either. The reason I don't love either is because last season we saw them be very inconsistent, and it was very clear that they were willing to play whichever one was hot. And so I don't like the idea of drafting either and not really knowing which one will play consistently. And on top of that, like they were okay. They were fine. Like they were good at
As
times.
goaltenders.
As
I mean,
goaltenders.
their stats were great, but yeah.
Yeah, as goaltenders, they were great, but like for fantasy, I was just kind of, whatever. And I mean, when I look at my rankings, I have Elvis Merzlikins like 22nd for standard cats leagues. Actually, do I have standard cats put in, or do I have saves? Let me see what I have him. I just have win save percentage, which I guess changes things.
Well, saves, yeah. I mean, that's going to knock him down. If you had wins, saves, percentage, goals against average, it probably goes up.
Probably goes up a little bit, but not that much. I still like a lot of guys over him. I still like a lot of people over them. There's still a lot of value to be had. I mean, Merzlikins is going at 116. You have Bob going 125. Francouz is going 108. I don't know if I love Francouz, to be honest, though. But you do have,
I don't like Francouz at all.
You have Mikko Koskinen going 176. There's some options that are going late.
I like him to an extent because of what I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, in that this league has a lot of struggles, or this division rather has a lot of struggles in scoring.
Yeah.
I don't really think you should expect, especially like Merzlikins type performance from last season, but they're okay. I think I think Merzlikins is a little high for some reason. I think Korpisalo is about right for his ADP if you wanted to get a goalie there.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know. I think I would just personally, maybe it's just me. I'm personally not targeting them at that ADP. I like, a Bob better,
just
or
take
Gibson.
Varlamov or something.
Or Varlamov. Yeah.
Yeah. If you
something
wanted
like
low volume, good stat
Yeah. Pretty
players
much.
or whatever.
Okay. So that is
One of the Stars.
Columbus. Yeah, let's move over to the Dallas Stars now.
The first thing I have written here says, I don't know, simply.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think there's a single guy who's worth earliest, like the top half of the draft.
Yeah, the earliest drafted Dallas Star forward is Jamie Benn at 125.4.
Yikes.
That's like 10th round. Yikes. That's actually 11th round.
I don't. Jamie Benn is the only guy I'd draft in a 12 person.
He's the only forward I'd draft. I think I would take the defense eventually.
Sure, I would take the defensive. Yeah, forward. Sorry, I should have specified.
And goalie as well.
He is the only forward I'd take. I don't want to touch Radulov.
Nope.
I don't like his situation. I don't like Dallas's style for Radulov. Sagan, last round pick, sure, but that's not going to happen, right? Like, I think Sagan's going to go earlier than last round, and that's kind of where I want him. Guryanov, interesting, potentially, but a watch list guy. Rope Hintz, watch list guy. Joel Kiviranta, watch list guy. Like, all of Dallas from the forward side is just a watch list and pick up when hot. And let's say Dallas is playing Detroit for 3 games.
Of those 3 names you just mentioned, you could grab one of them in like the last round.
Mm-hmm.
But like short leash, whatever, give him a week.
Yeah. Like, I just don't like how Dallas plays for forwards. It just isn't. It works. Here's the thing, too, is like we've talked about in the past, right? When a system works, like what Dallas is doing where they just play defense mostly, and it works, why would they change from that? Why are they all of a sudden going to be like, oh, let's go be offensive? And it's worked. They got to the Stanley Cup Finals. They're not going to change what's working. And so I think we're looking and expecting a year exactly like last year, where there was just not a lot of points to be had, and they're going to be a very defensive team. And that hurts everybody. It even hurts Miro Heiskanen and John Klingberg from an offensive standpoint.
Yep.
What hurts them even more is just the way they split the power play and switch up who plays on the top power play at times. Like, I don't like either. Honestly, I know you said you'd take them at some point. I don't want any piece of either of them.
I mean, when I say at some point, it's so low that I would never wind up getting them.
Yes.
Like, I would take Miro in like the 11th round, and I would take Klingberg, I don't know, if I need power play points near the end of the draft. But neither one is coming anywhere near me.
I will say that the one I like the most is Miro of the two.
Yeah.
I like Miro more because his shooting went up. He's going around 70,
his
though.
His ceiling is much higher.
He's going around 70.
Yeah.
To me, he's more like a 120 guy. 110, 120. Yeah. Like a standard league, right, with shots, hits. What else do they count? Assists, goals, power play. I went all over the place in this order. But
even in there, I mean, he's competing with Charlie McAvoy and Thomas Chabot, and like
I like way more. I mean,
yeah, and that's if we bump him down 40 positions.
Yeah, that's if we bump him down all the way to around. Man, yeah, there's just so many defensemen by then. I would not use my 70th pick on Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah,
no, thank you.
I mean, I'll admit he has tremendous upside.
Oh,
there's no denying that. It's just scary floor.
It's just scary floor.
It's not like his floor. He's like far removed from his floor, right? Like we're not even reacting to his last season.
Yeah. No.
His last season was like mediocre.
Yeah.
We're all reacting to his postseason.
Yes.
And even in his postseason, he posted 2 shots a game. Like he's not blown the doors off. He had 8 power play points.
Yeah. He didn't really do much. He's 2 seasons in a row with 8 power play points.
He had a ton of points. He was great. I mean, he was had they won, he probably would have won the Conn Smythe. But
which I had a bet on. Should have.
Yeah, right.
Chipped me of that. But whatever. That's not important. But yeah, I don't want their defense.
Lightning.
I think they are way too overvalued for what they are. And I think they're just getting drafted essentially on name value and team name value alone. They're like, oh, that's the team that went to the Stanley Cup final. I want that defenseman. And, a name that everyone knows in Miro Heiskanen. I don't want any piece of it, personally. And then the goaltenders, there's Anton Khudobin and Ben Bishop. I have been trying to look. Do we know when Ben Bishop's coming back? I think it's like the same timetable as...
He's got the same time as Sagan, yeah.
Yeah, so to me, Anton Khudobin is perhaps one of the biggest sleepers in this draft.
He's got a great ADP.
80 is unbelievable.
Wasn't really paying attention to how long Bishop was out, but I think a very good strategy is drafting Khudobin right around ADP,
Yep.
and then drafting Bishop at the end of the draft, sticking him in your IR, and then you're all set for playoffs.
And go pick up Koskinen.
Yeah, go pick up Koskinen. Exactly.
And you've got it. Like, to me, Anton Khudobin and the system in Dallas and the fact that he was able to take that team to the Stanley Cup final and perform the way he did, like, I think he could be a top 5 goaltender.
Absolutely. I definitely agree.
Like, if I look at the top guys that are going in the top 80, you see Darcy Kemper, Jacob Markstrom, you've got Philip Grubauer, you've got Robin Leonard, Jordan Binnington, Connor Hellebuck, Andrei Vasilevsky, and then Anton Khudobin at 80.
He's going beyond, like, Tristan Jarry's going ahead of him. And, like, Marc-Andre Fleury is going ahead of him. Like,
I love system.
What?
I love systems. That's the thing. I love Kemper because of the system. I don't love Kemper because of the injury history. And because the fact that they have a 1A, 1B situation. Who's going to play instead of Khudobin? Who's even their backup? Jake Odinger? However you pronounce that. I love Khudobin this year. I think
we really don't even know who's going to be his backup, now you mention it.
I love Khudobin. Okay, let's move on to the Detroit Red Wings here. 2 guys to talk about.
Sorry, guys.
It's bad.
I'm
Dylan
sorry
Larkin,
if you're
Anthony
a Red
Mantha.
Wings
We've
fan.
talked about them ad nauseum at this point. Like,
Yep.
you know what we think about Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha. Huge sleepers. Don't ignore them because Detroit sucks. They are beasts, and they're going to be on the top power play. A healthy Mantha is going to do wonders for Dylan Larkin, and both of them together have shown great chemistry before. And, the thing is, at the end of the day, there are teams in this division that I think Detroit's going to be able to do well against, given the goaltending situation. I do think they'll be able to get some points. I don't think it's going to be...
Is it nobody?
That's a good answer, actually.
Maybe Chicago. I don't know.
Chicago, for sure. They can. I think the Detroit-Chicago games will be high scoring. I think they can do
Those
some
games
damage.
are going to be fun. Those are going to be tune-in games.
I think they could do some damage against Carolina. And Carolina just outscores. I think it would be like a 4-2 game where Detroit scores 2 goals, on Peter Mrazek or James
Carolina's
Reimer.
defense is not... They're not bad, for sure. They got a good defense core.
No, but get
Preds,
a power play.
Them and the Preds would be fun, probably.
Preds would be fun, So that's it, honestly. And then after
Panthers
that,
would be
like,
fun.
there's Tyler Bertuzzi, Philip Zadina.
I don't like either one.
I like Bertuzzi a little bit. Brandon and I disagree a little bit. I like Bertuzzi in a PIMS league.
Don't like him in a PIMS league.
PIMS league. It's the only one I like him in.
I don't like him here or there.
He had a good season last season. He's going 167. That's the last round pick. In a PIMS league, I think he's more like a 120-ish value, potentially, by end of season. Now,
He's
again,
more like a 1 million value.
yeah,
I don't like
right.
that guy.
No,
Get him out of here.
he had a good season last year. Do not
He had
disgrace
a crap
Tyler.
season. He sucked.
No.
We dropped him in our.
We did.
Pimp league.
But he didn't have Mantha, and then Larkin was sucking.
Or
and
any
like,
skill.
That's not true. He could hit people and sit in a box. Okay. He
did
do
a lot of that.
pretty well. And then there's Philip Zadina. I don't think this is his year. I think next year is maybe his year. This isn't the year I'm gambling on Philip Zadina. I'm placing him on my watch list because I think he'll get dropped at some point.
Especially if he gets top left wing over your boy Bertuzzi here.
Yeah. Until that happens, just not seeing it. His shots still need to come up a little bit. He needs more ice time. I think they're going to be a little bit patient with him. Hopefully he gets it. If he gets that top power play, top left wing spot, then immediately I like it. But the thing is that from a team composition standpoint, it doesn't really make sense to put Zadina on that top line. I think they like that idea of like the Tom Wilson type Tyler Bertuzzi with that top line. A lot of teams I think are going that route now. And so I think they like that with Tyler Bertuzzi. So I think that's what we'll see them try to continue. Then there's just one, you can talk about Ronak because I know you like him, but we already talked about him a little bit on the Sleepers episode.
Yeah, I mean, I basically said, like, I don't know that I would take him much beyond, like, very late. I assume he gets top power play, but, I mean, they brought up Chalowski and gave Chalowski top power play here and there, so there's no real certainty with him, and even if he is certainly going to get that top power play, his ceiling is still not super high. He provides some stuff. It's tough to find any power play producing defenseman that late in the draft, so there's that.
Yeah.
But he's a little rough still, I think.
Still a little rough, and the team in general is a little rough. I mean, he played 65 games last year, got 10 power play points. So, ironic. So I don't know.
Yeah.
They
didn't give him top power play.
Doesn't get many shots,
honestly, but
he does get some hits, which is nice. But that's kind of about
his
it.
peripherals are right.
Okay, let's move on now to the Florida Panthers, home of my favorite goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky. Now that Hank isn't in the league anymore, I need to find a new allegiance. I finally dropped Hank, and I'm really sad about it in my dynasty. Really,
That was
really
a bummer.
sad. Yeah, that was a bummer. But I think I actually have some breaking news. So Brandon and I were talking offline about this, and Brandon actually said the words, "I actually like Sergei Bobrovsky this year."
Yep, I do. For the same reason I mentioned already. Like, of the teams that are not the Florida Panthers, only 2 of them scored above 50% in like against other teams, right?
Yeah.
Like we're in the top 50% of scoring, I should say.
Yeah.
So they're playing against a lot of teams that don't score well. So it's a good situation for Bob to be in for a bounce back year.
Yeah, and I liked what they did with the goaltending coaches. They brought in a coaching goalie excellence team, I think, and they did this in Arizona, and it worked really well. So I think that that's a sign that, okay, maybe they're making changes there that are going to be really positive and good for him. So I'm excited about Bob for that. And on top of that, like you can't ignore value, especially if you are in a league that counts volume. At what is he going at right now? 125.
125.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's great value in my opinion for Bobrovsky, given the fact that, the division that he's in and the people around him. I mean, just from a safe perspective alone, he's probably your second goaltender by that point. Maybe not. But I do like him a lot. I think he can have a bounce back year. In worst case, you drop him and you don't lose anything just because there's so many good options out there. I think Mikko Koskinen is an excellent option. I don't think Cam Talbot is a terrible option this year. Like, there are ways to live. I mean, hell, if many of us that listen to this podcast survived drafting Sergei Bobrovsky in the first 2 rounds last year, we can survive drafting him at 125, okay? We can do it.
Yep.
And there's value there to be had, in my opinion. So I do like that. And I think it's fitting to start Florida with him because he's, I think, the biggest wild card. I think if Bob can play well, the Florida Panthers can challenge for second place in this division. If Bob doesn't play well, they're struggling to make the playoffs. Which is what happened
I don't
last
think
year.
they're beating Carolina for second place.
I think if
don't
Bob
think they're
plays
beating Dallas for third.
I think if Bob plays well, they can, because that's the difference maker between them and Carolina is elite goaltending. If he can do it,
And defense, of which
I
Carolina
don't
is
think they have a
significantly
terrible.
better than
I
Florida.
don't think they have a terrible defense. No, they do. They have a terrible defense.
It's not
They have a
good.
terrible defense. Remember
They've
last year
got
we were
Keith
looking at
Yandel. Keith
stuff.
Yandel does not play defense.
Keith Yandel doesn't know what defense is. He doesn't just not play defense. He has no idea what it is. Him and Tony D'Angelo have no idea what defense even is. They're both wingers, as far as I'm concerned. So Aaron Ekblad and Keith Yandel to me are actually kind of the same value this year. Aaron Ekblad is slightly below him. They're completely different players. They offer completely different things.
Yeah.
Aaron Ekblad was on a 50-point pace last season. Mediocre shots, good blocks, not great. And then Yandel is solely a power play specialist, and that's kind of it. Same pace, actually, as Yandel, just with the power play points, whereas Yandel got only 6. Ekblad
I don't
only got
trust Ekblad to be putting up points again. That was the first time he's broken half a point per game. It's a decent, obviously it's a good division to be in to do that again, but I don't trust him without power play exposure.
Yeah.
I like Yandel more, but I mean, again, like you're saying, they're totally different. So it sort of depends what you want. I'm glad to see Ekblad sliding a little bit.
Yeah.
It seems like every season he's ADP is about 100. Now it's 130.
Yeah.
Still don't know if I love it there. I don't think he's getting 50 points. So, but
You know,
at least it's not as bad as usual.
I do like the idea of just putting Yandel on your watch list early in the draft if, say, you are targeting like a Pulak type or someone like that earlier. Because if you are, or like a Nurse a little bit earlier, just someone that mostly focuses more on the peripheral department. Like Pulak's not going to get you a lot of points or a lot of power play points. He's going to get you more peripherals than anything. So I like the idea of just putting Yandel on your watch list solely for the fact that he can make up a power play point deficiency pretty quickly. I mean, he got 21 power play points last year, got 39 the year before. I mean, he only played 69 games versus 82, so he could have gotten more. But he is someone to put on your watch list at around 120 that can get you power play points. And once you're getting to around 120-ish, honestly, it's hard to find power play points around there. You're gonna have trouble.
I'll be honest. I don't understand why he falls as far as he does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other 0-calorie power play guys that go way earlier. It's, I don't know. Maybe it's just an age where like people just assume because he's older he's going to be worse. But like he doesn't do anything. He stands on the blue line in power plays, and otherwise they pretty much don't play him.
Yeah.
So he played like 14 minutes a game in certain games last season. So
he did average around almost 20 last season. For
Yeah,
what it's
they
worth, total.
they moved him up and down, but
Yeah.
there was times I remember we were getting Twitter DMs like, should I be like concerned that they played him like 13 minutes this game? And I'm like, nah,
Because the place
it's
to
in their
always
best interest to play him 13 minutes if they can.
the place to always look at is the power play time on ice. His average power play time
Yeah.
on ice actually went up
Yeah.
to almost 4 minutes of average power play time on ice, which is really insane. So that's just like I said,
He's a good
Yandel is a
quarterback.
power play
That's just
specialist
what he
to
does.
pay attention to late in the draft, and that's about it. Okay, the second to last team here. We've talked about everyone there, I believe. Chris Drieger.
I got a couple more notes on Florida.
Oh
before we
wait, duh. We didn't even go through the forwards. Why are we going backwards here? This is weird.
Wow.
This is the
'Cause you
first
had
time
to
we've
start
done
with
this.
Barkov.
Weird. Obviously, start with
Or,
Barkov.
Bob. Yeah.
I think he's right at value this season.
Yep.
I think people know who he is, and I think he's going right at what you'd expect for Barkov this season. In the past, he's gone too low or too high. I think this season he's right on the dot of what people expect around there. That being said, I think there are better centers just kind of around him. I think I'd rather have Scheifele, for example,
Yeah.
than Barkov, right? Especially in that Canadian division. Landeskog is going right around him. I don't necessarily know if I'd love Landeskog over him, but he's there.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Landeskog this season, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. But, I think there are
I
options.
think Malkin's
around
right there too, which
Sorry?
is. I think Malkin's right there too, if I remember right.
I think Malkin's earlier, if I remember
28.9 compared to 35. It's not that far.
Not that far off. He could fall to you. And I mean, Tavares is 31.5, so he's right there too. So there are people that I'd like more. To me, Barkov feels like the center that you end up with after you've missed out on all these other centers, maybe.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
That's kind of how it is. He's like your last top center available, and they're like, oh, well, I guess I got to take a center finally. But I think he's going right around value. Now,
Yeah.
moving over to Huberdeau, this might be the first season where I say, is Huberdeau going just a little bit too high?
I actually think he is also going right around value.
I'd say right around value
People
or
figured it
a
out.
little too high. It's weird. He's always gone below value. I don't like it. It makes me feel weird. He's always going like
It
this
is. I
round.
mean, I feel like it's just a weird situation in general that he's going above Brad Marchand, but I think that's mostly. Although Marchand is clearly on the uptick now.
Yeah.
When we started talking about how ridiculous it was that he was as low as he is, he was like a solid third round pick.
Yeah.
And now he's going to break into second round territory probably in the next couple of days. So. I think he jumps Huberdeau literally in the next 24 hours.
Yeah. I
There's
think-
that.
So Huberdeau, I'm a big fan of him. 2 straight 90-point paces, right? Great. One thing that was alarming last season was his shots dropped by around 20%.
Yeah, hate to see that.
Something to pay attention to because that's
But he also
not
he
quite
just
great.
dominates on power play, which is
He does.
great as well.
Insane. 29 power play points last season in 69 games. Just
Yeah.
so nice.
Back
So
to back
nice.
30 plus point pace,
Wild.
30 plus power play point pace, which is very hard to find.
He's such a monster. I love where I mean I love his situation. I think he can do just as well, especially in this division, right? With a round robin style thing, I think a guy like Huberdeau kind of eats. I think he feasts on some of these teams.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, right, where at 24 you don't want to gamble, and Huberdeau to me is no longer a gamble. What is a gamble to me is a shot on goal pace, and that's the only thing that scares me just a little bit about Huberdeau. Then the last person to talk about here, in my opinion, is Patrick Hornquist. Because to me, he
I
might
love
be
him late.
the best acquisition this offseason, potentially.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers filled that hole that they had with Mike Hoffman and added grit, which they could use. He's always been. He's getting older. Let's not kind of sugarcoat that, but he's always been good on the power play over in Pittsburgh when he was there. Even in Nashville, way back when he was a shooter. Like that was kind of that's what he was known for. I mean, he's evolved a little bit past that, but I think he'll be a good addition to what's already a good power play.
Yeah. And such a shooting power play, too. I don't think that Florida's ever been kind of a team that goes hard to the net. They're more of a shooting power play with Huberdeau and Barkov and Yandel. And so I think that there's that opportunity to get rebounds or to get tip-ins for Hornquist. And I think he makes a big difference as a net front presence for the already good, Florida Panthers power play. So he's going around 152 right now. I think he's a top 100 guy. Not that I draft him there, but I think that's where he could end up. I think if you're in a bangers league, you absolutely should be paying attention to Patrick Hornquist. I mean, with his shot pace, which is insane, he gets a pretty good hits. Not like incredible or anything, but still good. I mean, he shot at 200. He had shot a 265 point pace last season while only playing around 60 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
He can shoot a lot, and I think that the Florida Panthers team is one that shoots a lot. Well, we'll see. I mean, Huberdeau's went down, right? But just something to pay attention to. I love Patrick Hornquist this season and think he could really have a great year.
Yeah, I mean, his hits are good too.
Yeah.
He was
Not great. Like I said, not great, but they're good.
They're pretty good. I mean, he was over 150 hit pace.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That is, especially for someone that late. It's not bad. Okay.
I have two more little
you do?
tidbits.
Okay.
Yeah. First one is Anthony Duclair.
Eh.
He's a late, if he plays top power play, especially if he gets top right wing. What we're not really addressing here is top right wing is technically still open. It could go to Hornquist, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them play him less minutes and play him second line top power play, similar to how Pittsburgh played him third line top power play. And Duclair, I mean, we've seen flares from him, and he's going to be on a high-scoring team that likes to shoot. So it meshes with the style that he likes, but who really knows?
Yeah, I mean,
somebody to look at.
Let's see if you
And
have.
then
I have
Owen
one-
Tippett is the
yeah.
other option, in my opinion, that might wind up in that top right wing spot.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't draft Tippett at all because we have nothing to go off of. But Duclair, I would consider if he winds up, in camp, practicing on that top right wing.
I would immediately place Owen Tippett on a watch list, though.
Yeah.
Just to see what happens. Because if he does get the top line, top power play, he is, pretty offensive guy. So he could be very valuable, especially in a points league early on. So it's just someone to pay attention to. And, especially in those games when they're playing, say, Detroit for a stretch or Chicago for a stretch, like you're going to want that's going to be a guy, that top line, whether it's Duclair or Tippett, that's someone to watch immediately, Okay, so now we go on to the second to last team here in the Nashville Predators. The Philadelphia Flyers, but worse, of the Central Division. I mean, the forwards are so middle ground. I like the defensemen more than the forwards.
Yep. That was a hot take last season when I said Yossi will lead the points, and then now it's just kind of almost obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect Yossi to be leading the team in points. It's just,
which is weird. It's such a weird thing.
It is.
But yeah.
It's a sad state of things. Like I don't like Philip Forsberg really.
Nope. I hate his ADP. Why is his ADP 73?
Hate his ADP. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Terrible.
He's
terrible,
had
terrible.
two seasons back to back that were not good. He's still fine, right? He still puts up good peripherals. He's got some upside, but we're drafting him in a very weird spot there at the 73
17
area
and a half
where there's
minutes
a bunch
a game?
of better options.
I don't want 17 and a half minutes a game. No thanks. I mean, sure, he gets great offensive zone starts, shoots a lot, but I don't know if I like those 17 and a half minutes a game. That's just not great. Matt Duchene, I hate. I don't like Matt Duchene at all this season.
Nope.
I don't know why.
He's not even on my list.
Not even.
I didn't talk about
even,
either forward. Johansson either. Just no.
Victor Arvidsson, no. I mean, he has the shots, and but his shots dropped 35% this last season. It was the reason.
He's somebody I would keep an eye on because I was under the impression most of last season that he was playing hurt.
Yeah.
Just because things changed too much, right? Like his scoring went away, but also his shots did, which is like very unusual for him.
Well,
so
I mean,
he's somebody I'd watch.
His shooting percentage dropped from 17% to 11%, and then his shooting dropped 35%. Like, his points are just going to fall off.
That's the weird thing to me is like that's where everything kind of blends into like. Was he just hurt the whole time? Like,
yeah, but
it's plausible.
But at what point, like, you can only give him so many, defenses. Or I don't want to.
That's
I don't
the
want
only
to draft
defense.
him,
He had to have been hurt, or he's just bad. But I'm not going to draft him, like I said. But he's on my watch list for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
If he starts showing signs early, I'd probably grab him.
Yeah, for sure. The same thing. I'd put him on my watch list, and that's about it. Then moving on to the defense, I've already talked about where I like Roman Josi. I think he is my favorite defenseman of the season. I think he's my top one.
Definitely.
Personally, I think he covers all the
I
bases.
don't think that's too hot of a take.
Sorry?
I said I don't think that's too hot of a take.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, he's top 3 for almost everyone for me. He's just
I thought you said Carlson you had over him.
Oh, I did. Sorry. Yeah. So it's Carlson, then Josi. Carlson, then Josi. You were right. And then Ryan Ellis. Honestly, I like all the defensemen as kind of deep guy. Like, Ryan Ellis was not bad last season, Matthias Ekholm
Yeah.
didn't have a bad season. Matthias Ekholm, especially
I
in the
don't like
blocks
Ellis
league.
at 121 though. His ADP is
Yeah,
too
no.
early.
Yeah, I don't like Ellis.
There's way better options around there.
Yeah,
Pollock is later than that, for
Yeah.
example.
yeah. I do like Ekholm's.
And Trouba, Nurse, and a bunch of other guys that can
Yeah.
get you peripherals at least.
I like Ekholm. 2 seasons now with 40-point pace. Not terrible, not great. Just a very
What are
deep
you
league
looking for
option.
from him, I guess?
Good blocks too.
Yeah.
Good blocks. Just a good deep league option of like if you need blocks or something. It's someone to have as on a watch list in case they happen to be playing Detroit
Or
or whatever.
Yossi gets hurt.
Yeah.
Yossi gets hurt, things get interesting in this.
Oh,
in this
yeah.
team.
It'll get really interesting if Yossi gets injured. And then just a reminder, if you're in a hits league or a PIMS league too, Mark Borowiecki is now on Nashville. How that affects him, I don't know. But Nashville does tend to be a pretty high-hitting team sometimes and physical. So I could see actually Borowiecki being a really physical presence this season. And the big question, though, will be his minutes. When a guy hits like Borowiecki and gets PIMS like Borowiecki, the big differentiator is going to be how many minutes does he play. If he doesn't play that many minutes, there's not that many opportunities for people to hit, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Then lastly, the goaltenders, UC Saros and Pekka Rinne. I like UC Saros quite a bit. I think Saros is the starting goaltender for all intents and purposes. I don't know if I'd love him. There's so many unknowns there. There's so many question marks. At 117, he's fine.
Right.
Like I said, I think he's a sleeper to me. I like him at 117 as maybe my second goaltender or something. I'm not in love with him.
Right.
I don't think he's the best option
It's just a
by any
season where
means.
you could fade goalies forever, and I think
Yes.
there's a good chance that in your league Saros will fall and fall and fall.
Yeah.
Or somebody will take him early. He's actually he's a weird goalie in that I think very few people actually draft him at his ADP.
Yes.
Around 117. I think people draft him either early because they're hot on him, or they just fade him completely and he winds up late in the draft. I don't think there's a whole lot of drafting him right in that area.
Like, to me, I think Saros is a top 20 goalie. I think he finishes somewhere in like that 15 to 20 rank, personally.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where he finishes. So that's why for me, I'm like, is it really worth taking him there? Or would I'd rather just kind of gamble on like I don't know. I'd rather
Bob,
gamble on a Bob,
Demko, Gibson,
Varlamov.
Varlamov.
Varlamov. There's a lot of options. And there's good forwards still at that
Martin
position.
Jones.
Oh God, Martin Jones. Never again touching that man. We'll get to that, but I'm not touching that man. Okay, and now to the last team, which surprisingly, like we said, there's not that much to talk about. I mean, proven players. Tampa, Braden Point, Steven Stamkos. I mean, Stamkos is my favorite of them all this season. I think he's a monster.
I think Point is being overdrafted at 17,
Yes.
and I think Stamkos is being underdrafted at 24.9.
Yes. I think people are targeting.
I would actually
Braden
swap them, and then they're pretty much in line.
Yeah, I agree. I would be targeting Stammer. It feels like everyone's kind of targeting Point, but I'd be targeting Stammer. Hot take.
Yeah, give
but
me
I
the guy
think
that has the better position range
Yes.
and the better shot numbers and probably the same point upside.
I like Stammer as a top 10 player. I think Braden Point is like a top 30 player.
Yeah,
Because
sounds
Braden
about
Point,
right.
when he's
in
not-
Cats leagues, in points leagues, I think they're a little closer,
Yeah,
but I still have Stamkos over him.
For sure. In points leagues, closer. In bangers leagues, definitely Braden Point takes, I think, a bigger step back. Just because he doesn't offer as much as Stammer, which makes sense. But then again, like these ADP is based on a bangers league with no PIMS. So to me, it's especially egregious that he's going that high in a league like a standard Yahoo Cats at that ADP over someone like Stamkos. Like it doesn't really make sense to me. And he had an 80-point pace last season, but his shot pace was atrocious and actually decreased. His power play points, honestly, were not that good. He only got 13 power play points in 16 games, or 66 games. That's awful. That's awful from Braden Point. That's the thing that alarms me the most, although he should get more this season. But I mean, a big chunk of those fall-offs in power play points was the fact that he shot at 40% the year before and 20% last season. So, I don't know. I think Braden Point is I'd target Stammer. I would not take Braden Point as ADP. I'd probably take him about 10 points back, and then he's fine. 10 or 15 points back, and I think then he's right in line.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's confusing
Yeah.
to me, but whatever.
Yeah. Supporting cast.
It makes me think that everything is being adjusted by age in
Yeah,
redraft leagues, which
sure.
you shouldn't be doing too much of.
Yeah, especially
Or
this
any
season.
of. You're talking 1 year. You can't predict anything.
Yeah,
here.
no. Even in keeper leagues, I mean, even in a keep 5, I'm not adjusting by age really that much because ultimately,
Yeah, not a keep 5.
yeah, especially in those.
Well, maybe a little bit. But
No, I mean,
I wouldn't have point that high in a keep 5. I don't think.
no. But I'm saying, like, for example, I wouldn't keep, for example, a point over a Patrick Kane in a keep 5 single year, right? Just because of age.
Yeah.
I still like Kane over him. And for this single season, he's going to crush. And sure, maybe he falls off next season, but I think you got to trust that you can find the next best thing.
Win now and pay for your league for the next handful of seasons.
Exactly. Win now, and you've got your buy-in for a while. Then there's the supporting
So
cast.
I don't really like any other forward, like
Except-
particularly. I think Palat and Killorn are both like
Fine.
you could take a swing at them late, but
Don't love them.
I wouldn't get super excited about Palat. We've seen him be top line, top power play for a while, and like he's always just kind of like streamer material.
Yeah.
Killorn, I mean, he had that stretch where everybody thought he was the best thing ever, and then he didn't anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to expect from him either. He might be worth a point upside goal guy, but
Yeah.
he
did
Blake
finish the
Coleman,
season-
I actually think is probably gets. Go ahead.
He did finish the season at 20% shooting. Alex
Right.
Killorn did. So
Yeah.
I would expect his goals to come down a lot.
Yeah. Blake Coleman actually gets kind of interesting if he gets
Yes.
bumped up to that second line. If he gets an increase in ice time, like we saw in the postseason,
Watch out.
you might be able to see some more peripherals out of him. He's not going to go back to what you saw in New
Doubles,
Jersey
yeah.
rather, but you could get some decent peripheral numbers out of him like you want. He was absolutely absurd in the playoffs.
It was insane.
Averaging 5 hits a game, just
I loved
but,
him in the playoffs.
and over a PIM a game. He was a complete madman.
I remember
But-
during the playoffs, Brandon and I were betting, and every single day, anytime there was a Lightning game, the first thing we did was go look at the Blake Coleman shot line, take the over every time. We just
Yep.
hammered the over every time because it was always too low, and he was always shooting like crazy. I mean, if he can do that again this season, watch out. I'm really excited. I think Blake Coleman is a guy, especially in a bangers league, I'm putting on my watch list immediately. I mean, with his potential shot pace and his potential hit pace, like you could see some big things out of him, I think.
Yep.
And then defense.
And then defense, yeah.
Obvious stuff. I mean, Victor Hedman, he's been on like around a 60 to 65 point pace the last 2 seasons. He was a 68 point pace last season, but I think that would have fallen a little bit. I think we know what you get with Hedman now. I think he's
Yeah.
a pretty predictable player for the most part. I think we know who he is, what you're going to get. Good power play points, good blocks, decent hits, around 100 hit pace. He is, what he is at this point. I don't think he really even has that much upside, that much. I wouldn't say that. I'd say he's a known commodity. And so
Yeah, his
take
upside's
him
good
where you
though.
will.
I mean, his
Upside's
upside
good,
just is what he does all the time.
Yeah, is what
It's
he
like
does
his
all the
ceiling
time.
and his floor are very close together, I think.
which is kind of why I put him third or fourth, personally, because
Yeah.
I think that Dougie has a bigger ceiling. I think Yossi has a bigger ceiling, and I think that Carlson has a bigger ceiling, just because of the situation and the way that the team plays. Now, Hedman could have a bigger season with Kucherov out. He might play a bigger factor in that power play this season, potentially. But
I think it's worse for him.
could
but-
be worse for him too. Yeah, there's a few question marks there on the power play, and then of course the guy we always get questions on is Mikhail Sergachev. Every year
I don't
we
like
have
him
to say
again.
this. I never like him. He's not good.
Yeah.
At least for fantasy, he's not
The
good.
interesting thing for both players, Hedman and Sergachev here, is we saw a couple opportunities, or rather instances, in which Sergachev took power play 1.
Yeah.
Which, great news for Sergachev and terrible news for Hedman.
Yes.
Neither time did it really last very long, if memory serves. But
Yeah.
at 125.8, we're once again talking about a player that is not worth that ADP, and he gets drafted there every season.
So crazy.
People just take this like shot at him as their second or third defenseman, and it never works.
Yeah, I just don't see it. The only place I see it in is maybe a blocks league late, because he
Even
gets
then, there's
he
just
gets
better
decent hits and
options.
blocks. But yeah, there's better options than
Go get Ryan Ellis or something. I don't know.
there are better options than Mikhail Sergachev. He was on a 40-point pace last season, and that's with him getting a little bit of an increase in power play time on ice or
He's
average
never
time on ice.
he's never been better than a half point per game pace.
Yeah.
His best season was his first season where he got 40 points in 79 games, which is barely half a point a game.
Yeah, I don't like Sergachev. We say this every year. Every year, people are like, "Oh, but this is the year Sergachev
His
breaks
peripherals are
out."
terrible too, just awful.
Awful. I mean, I like his blocks and his hits. He's at 124 hit pace, 116 block pace. Not terrible.
124 hit pace.
Fine. It's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. But it's not worth the
Just
80.
get Nurse. Nurse is after him.
Yeah. I mean, I like Pulak more. Whatever. I'm tired of talking about Sergachev. We always talk about Sergachev and say the same things there. Well, the goaltender. I mean, that's not hard. I think we know exactly what the goaltenders are about. I think Brandon died. I can't hear him anymore. Oh, no. I think Brandon died. Yep. R.I.P. Well, anyways, the goaltenders are obvious. I mean, at least it died at the right time. Like, Vasilevsky is a known commodity. Best goaltender in the league. Easily.
Sorry, my mic cut out. Anyway, I'm still here.
Okay, I thought you died. You did not die. Well, anyways,
I was just saying
back.
there's nothing too surprising here.
Yeah.
Vasilevsky is exactly what you want him to be. He's the best
Exactly.
goaltender there is. His backup isn't a realistic backup, so he's going to get a lot of volume.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to want out of a goalie than you get out of Vasilevsky.
He is the number one goalie, and it's not close. I think it's him, and then
Yeah.
Hellebuck is close to him in a realist sense, but the problem with Hellebuck is the fact that he's in that Canadian division, which is going to make his life
and he's likely
hell.
to get losses where Vasilevsky really isn't that much.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's going to be hard for me. It's hard for me to see Vasilevsky not just like eating this league for dinner or this division for dinner, like it's dessert.
And the league, probably.
And the league probably once it gets to it. So anyways, there you go. That is your Central Division preview. The next division here is the last one, and that is the California Division. That's what we're calling it.
The West, the Pacific. Why did they
West
rename
Pacific
that one if they're not
California
going to rename the
Division.
Central one?
I
don't know.
It makes no sense. It's weird. It is the Pacific Division. For all intents and purposes, at least. Like that's the Pacific. So anyways, that will be the next division. That's it. And then we have some cool things coming up. We're gonna put up a listener league draft video. You'll be able to watch. We're gonna be doing that one this weekend, so you'll be able to see kind of how our first like real draft went. Maybe give you a sense of what might happen, and it's all with listeners of the show. So these are sharp people, so it might help you get a sense of like, okay, what are people in my league gonna do if they know the same things I know? Where might they reach and whatnot? So it's gonna be a lot of fun. It'll be really interesting. We're gonna record one of those and put them up. And then we'll also next week have a few goodies. We have a little bit of a surprise next year. Well, that's the wrong word. Next week. Not next year. Next week.
Right.
It is. That would have worked if we had recorded this New Year's Eve, but it's not. So next week, we have a little bit of a surprise for you. And aside from that, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Yep. Thanks for listening.